Good morning, students. Or whichever time you are viewing this clip, we are going to continue or look at elasticity. We'll look at the price elasticity of supply, among other things. Later on in the clip, you will see we look at income elasticity of demand, and lastly, we're going to look at the cross elasticity of demand as well. So first, let's look at price elasticity of demand. So that when price changes, there will be not only a change in quantity demanded but also a change in quantity supplied. Frequently, we will want to know just how responsive quantity supplied is to a change in price. The measure we use is what? Price elasticity of supply. Definition goes at this, which is the responsiveness. So price, you can possibly write down. Price elasticity of supply is the responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in price. Figure 2.19 shows two supply curves, right? You have curve S2, which is this one, as you can see right here. With this curve, S2 is more elastic between any two prices than S1, which is this one. Thus, when price rises from P1 to P2, watch this, there's a larger increase in quantity supplied with what? S2, meaning from what? Q1 to Q3. Then there's with what? S1, where quantity rises from what? Just Q1 to a small amount of what? Q2. Notice from Q1 to Q3, the increase is, the gap is wider for S2, right? Good. So for any shift in the demand curve, there will be a larger change in quantity supplied and a smaller change in price with S2, with curve S2, than with curve what? S1. Alright? Thus, the effect on price and quantity of a shift in demand curve will depend on the price elasticity of supply. We go again. Thus, the effect on price and quantity of a shift in the demand curve will depend on the what? Price elasticity of supply. The formula for the price elasticity of supply is the percentage or proportionate change in quantity supplied divided by what? Percentage change or proportionate change in what? Price. Putting it all together, you have this formula which you should write down, please, gentle folks. That's the price elasticity of supply. Same principle applies to demand. In other words, the formula is identical to that for the price elasticity of demand, except that quantity in this case is what? Quantity supplied. Thus, if a 10% rise in price, what is known? 10% rise in price caused 25% rise in the quantity supplied, the price elasticity of supply would be what? 25% divided by what? 10%, which will give you 2.5. And if a 10% rise in price causes only a 5% rise in quantity, the price elasticity of supply would be what? 0.5. In the first case, supply is what? Elastic because it is greater than 1. In the second case, it is inelastic because what? Price elasticity of supply is less than 1. Notice that unlike the price elasticity of demand, the figure is what? Positive. This is because price and quantity supplied change in the what? Same direction. Determinants of price elasticity of supply. The amount that costs, the first determinant is the amount that costs rise as output rises. The less the additional cost of producing additional output, the more firms will be encouraged to produce for a given price rise, and the more elastic will be supply. Alright. Supply is just likely to be elastic if firms have plenty of spare capacity, if they can readily get extra supplies of raw materials, if they can easily switch away from producing alternative products, and if they can avoid having to introduce overtime working. If all these conditions hold, costs will be little affected by a rise in output and supply will be what? Relatively elastic. The less these conditions apply, the less elastic will be supply. The next determinant of price elasticity of supply is the period. Alright. Time period. Immediate time period firms are unlikely to be able to increase supply by much immediately. Supply is virtually fixed or can only vary according to available stocks. Supply is highly inelastic. In the short run, if a slightly longer period of time is allowed to elapse, some inputs can be what? Increased, for example, raw materials, while others will remain fixed, for example, heavy machinery. Supply can increase somewhat in that case. In the long run, there will be sufficient time for all inputs to be increased and for new firms to enter the industry. Supply, therefore, is likely to be highly elastic in the long run. In some circumstances, the long run supply curve may even slope downwards. We will look at that in more detail later on. Now we're going to jump across to income income elasticity of demand. So far, we have looked at the responsiveness of demand and supply to a change in price. But price is just one of the determinants of demand and supply. In theory, we could look at the responsiveness of demand or supply to a change in any one of their determinants. We could have a whole range of different types of elasticity of demand and supply. Remember that elasticity is the responsiveness of one variable to a change in what? Another. The concept is fundamental to understanding how markets work. The more elastic variables are, the more responsive is the market to changing circumstances. In practice, there are just two other elasticities that are particularly useful to us, and both are demand elasticities. The first is the income elasticity of what? Demand. This measures the responsiveness of demand to a change in what? Consumer incomes. It enables us to predict how much the demand curve will shift for a given change in income. The formula for the income elasticity of demand is the percentage change or proportionate change in demand divided by what? Percentage change or proportionate change in income. Putting this in symbol form, you have a percentage change in quantity demanded divided by what? Percentage change in income. Please write this down. Please know this formula for exam. Remember, is a percentage change or proportionate change in demand divided by what? The percentage or proportionate change in income. Alright. Now, if for example you are given a question in exam, and for argument's sake, you are given a question like this. Let's just give a scenario. So you're given a question where you say, due to an increase, listen carefully, in annual income from 2,000 to 2,400, a month's expenditure on housing goes up by 20%. What is now? The quantity demanded percentage change would have been what? 20%. However, you got an increase in income from 2,000 to 400. Now, if you want to find the percentage change in quantity demanded, you're going to have to divide the 400 by what? 2,000. And that would give you a figure of 20%. Now that 20% now you will place above your percentage change in income and divide it. And the answer would have been equal to 1. Alright. In other words, the formula is identical to that for the elasticity of demand, except that we are dividing the change in demand by the change in income that was caused. Change, the change in income, sorry, the change in income that caused it. So, in other words, the formula is identical to that for the price elasticity of demand, except that we are dividing the change in demand by the what? Change in income that caused it rather than by a change in price. Thus, if for example, if a 2% rise in income cause an 8% rise in products demand, then its income elasticity of demand would be what? 8% divided by what? 2% is equal to 4. The major determinant of income elasticity of demand is the degree of necessity of the good. In a developed country, the demand for luxury goods expands rapidly as the people's incomes rise, whereas the demand for basic goods rises only a little. Thus, items such as cars and foreign holidays have a high income elasticity of demand, whereas items such as vegetables and bus journeys have a low income elasticity of demand. The demand for some goods actually decreases as people's incomes rise beyond a certain level. These are called inferior goods, such as cheap margarine. As people earn more, so they switch to butter or better quality margarine. Unlike normal goods which have a positive income elasticity of demand, inferior goods have a what? Negative income elasticity of demand. Please remember these terminologies, read them carefully, remember about them. Let's go back. Let's go to some terms that you know. So therefore, normal goods. You can pause the video, write this down. Normal goods are goods whose demand increases as consumer incomes increase. They have a positive income elasticity of demand. Right? Luxury goods will have a higher income elasticity of demand than more basic goods. Alright? So goods whose demand increases as consumer incomes increase are what? Normal goods. They have a what? Positive elasticity of demand. Inferior goods now are goods whose demand decreases as consumer goods increase. Such goods have a what? Negative income elasticity of demand. Alright? Note that. Good. Let's go back a little bit further. You can pause the video, write this down. The formula for price elasticity of supply is the percentage or proportionate change in quantity supply divided by the what? Percentage or proportionate change in what? Price. Pause the video, write that down. Please remember those terminologies. Thank you very much. Let's go to the other section of our video now. Income elasticity of demand is an important concept to firms. Consider the future size of a market for their product. If a product has a high income elasticity of demand, sales are likely to expand rapidly as national income rises, but may also fall significantly if the economy moves into a recession. Alright? This shows how the concept of income elasticity of demand can help us understand why so many developing countries have chronic balance of payments problems. So these are things that you don't need to focus on. Alright? We'll look at the last segment of this video at this time. Cross elasticity of demand. Look at it quickly, please. This is often known by its less cumbersome title of cross elasticity of demand. It is a measure of the responsiveness of demand for one product to a change in the price of another, either a substitute or a complement. It enables us to predict how much the demand curve for the first product will shift when the price of the second product changes. So this is looking at what? Substitutes, right? A while ago we looked at income elasticity, and we look at demand elasticity in price elasticity of demand in previous section. Now look at cross elasticity, cross price elasticity of demand. Now the formula for cross price elasticity of demand is, see the formula here, is the percentage or proportionate change in demand for a good divided by the percentage or proportionate change in the price of good B. This is the formula. If good B is a substitute for good A, A's demand will rise as B's price what? Rises. Well, again, if good B is a substitute for good A, which is the original one, A's demand will rise as what? B's price rises. What that means is that B is a substitute, right? So if B price rise, people go buy less of B and want buy more of what? A. Good. In this case, the cross elasticity will be a positive figure. For example, if demand for butter rose by 2%, when the price of margarine rose by what? 8%, then the cross elasticity of demand for butter with respect to margarine would be what? 0.25. That is if B is what? A substitute. If good B is complementary to good A, however, A's demand will fall as B's price rises, and thus as the quantity of B demanded falls. In this case, cross elasticity of demand will be what? A negative figure. For example, if a 4% rise in the price of bread led to a 3% fall in the demand for butter, the cross elasticity of demand for butter with respect to bread would be what? Negative 0.75. Remember, go again, this one. If good B is complementary to good A, however, A's demand will fall as B's price rises. If you want to, if you don't remember what complementary mean, what does complementary mean, then, folks? What does complementary mean? Complementary goods are a pair of goods consumed together. As the price of one goes up, the demand for both goods will what? Fall. So if B is complementary to good A, when A's demand will fall as what? B's price rises because what? They are complementary. And this is the quantity of B demanded falls. Good? As well. In this case, cross elasticity of demand will be a negative figure. For example, if a 4% rise in the price of bread led to a 3% fall in the demand for butter, the cross elasticity of demand would be a what? For butter with respect to bread would be negative 0.75. If you can, you have to try to remind yourself of what complementary goods are. Good to understand this section. The major determinant of cross elasticity of demand is the closeness of the substitute or complement. The closer it is, the bigger will be the effect and the first good of a change in the price of a substitute or complement. And hence, the greater the cross elasticity, either positive or negative. Firms need to understand this. Firms need to know the cross elasticity of demand for their product when considering the effect on the demand for their product of a change in the price of a rival's product or of a complementary product. These are vital pieces of information for firms when making their production plans. Another application of the concept of cross elasticity of demand is in the field of international trade and the balance of payments. How does a change in the price of domestic goods affect the demand for imports? If there is a high cross elasticity of demand for imports, because they are close substitutes for home produced goods, and if prices at home rise due to inflation, the demand for imports will rise substantially, thus worsening what? The balance of payments. So you ask the question, how does a change in price of elasticity of goods affect the demand for product for imports? Answer is if there is a high cross elasticity of demand for imports, and if prices at home rise due to inflation, the demand for imports will what? Rise substantially. Thus raising the what? Balance of payments. Remember that cross elasticity of demand is what? The responsiveness of demand for one good to a change in the price of another. Thank you for joining me. Before I go, let's do a summary quickly, gentlemen folks. Alright, thank you for joining me for this video clip. I wish you would go back, replay, pause the video, write notes where necessary, and I wish you a wonderful enjoy. Worksheet will follow shortly to test your understanding of what was discussed.